Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Group Captain Warren Bishop. We warmly welcome the family of leading aircraftsman Norman Robert Banville, whose story will be read shortly. We're honoured to acknowledge members of the Zionist Federation who are joining us for the ceremony this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of Marymount Primary School from Queensland. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that all Australians could understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we pay tribute to leading aircraftman Norman Robert Banville. Norman Robert Banville was born on the 31st of October 1921 in Maryborough, Queensland, to Walter and Jane Banville. Walter Banville had served in the First World War, was wounded in France, and met Jane whilst recovering in Britain. The couple wed in Glasgow and returned to Australia after the war. Together they had 3 children, Norman, James and Janet. Growing up in Maryborough, Norman, who was known as Normie, attended the local school before going on to train as an electrical mechanic. He gained employment as a telephone mechanic at the General Post Office in Brisbane. On the 12th of September 1940, Banville listed in the Royal Australian Air Force and began training as a wireless operator and air gunner. Following training, Banville was posted to No. 20 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force, which had been formed in Port Moresby and flew Catalina flying boats. On the 6th of May 1942, during the Battle of Coral Sea, the Catalina, which Banville was a crew member, was flying on a reconnaissance mission trying to spot the Japanese fleet and its carriers. Banville's Catalina, commanded by Squadron Leader Geoffrey Ellard Hemsworth, reported the sighting of 2 enemy destroyers to the south, east of Messina Island, in the Louisiade archipelago. Immediately afterwards, they signalled that they were being attacked by enemy fighters. Nothing more was heard of the Catalina, and the crew were reported missing. After the war, a captured Japanese diary was discovered which contained information about a Japanese destroyer picking up a crew of 9 airmen whose Catalina had been shot down. The prisoners had been transferred to a transport ship which sailed to Rabaul, where it was believed that prisoners may have been dropped off before the transport ship was sunk by a submarine. Whilst the report seemed to confirm that Banville's crew were captured, no records exist of Banville's crew alighting at Rabaul. Nothing more is known of the fate of the Catalina crew. Officially, the crew was presumed to have been killed whilst prisoners of war, on or after the 7th of May 1942. Norman Banville was just 20 years old. His name is listed here on the Roll of Honour to my left, among some 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember leading aircraftman Norman Robert Banville, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Students, could I ask you to please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them. rest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.